Session 3 deals with food system profiles and policies. I will introduce the chair and the rapporteurs, and the chair will introduce the presenters for this session. The two rapporteurs who are working diligently behind the scenes are Dr. Peyapong Bangjatewakup. He is a lecturer and researcher in the Faculty of Economics at Thammasat University. And then Dr. Ponsri Si Pongsang is assistant professor in the Department of Agriculture Economic Development at the Faculty of Agriculture, Chiang Mai University in Thailand. The chair is Mr. Suryan Wijatlagan. He is the executive director of the Mekong Institute. He is a strong advocate and actively involved in integration initiatives throughout the ASEAN region and the greater Mekong sub-region. He heads a variety of projects intended to promote sustainable development through regional cooperation and integration. He has over 20 years of experience in developing cooperation partnerships, particularly in agriculture and rural development, formulating policy for private partnerships, and facilitating trade initiatives throughout the regions. I'll turn it over now to the chair, Mr. Suryan.
Thank you very much, Professor, for the introduction. And I would like to extend a warm welcome to the audience to the second day of the seminar. As Professor Matthew has already explained, this seminar already started yesterday. I would like to also emphasize the theme of the seminar, which we would like to focus on policy awareness and call for action. There's been a recurring kind of message and theme why food systems is so important and how it could offer a new lenses and holistic approach in looking at how we can address the issues of agriculture, food production, and so on and so forth. The previous two sessions has already provided us some of the thought and idea in the production, in the addressing vulnerability, shocks, and stress. We hope to be able to also shed light in food system profiling and also policy. So this session, we will be able to deep dive into this term of food system profile and policy, what it means in terms of profile and how it could be used as a knowledge tool and also decision-making tool. At the same time, we would like to look into what kind of policy implication for the sustainable food systems and how it could be put into implementation at the scale. This morning, we are fortunate enough to have good speakers who will be able to share view and experience. I would like to introduce each of them first before inviting them to speak on each of the topic. Today we have Dr. Benjamin Belton. He is Associate Professor, the Department of Agricultural, Food and Resource Economics, Michigan State University, and also Interim Global Lead for Social and Economic Inclusion World Fish. So we are fortunate to have him to stay with us. Second speaker is Dr. Adi Djoko Kuritno. Dr. Adi is Associate Professor from the Department of Agro-Industrial Technology, University Gajah Mada from Indonesia. Next speaker, we have Dr. Thuyen Hui. She is the Senior Research Associate from the Alliance of Biodiversity International, my apology, and International Center for Tropical Agriculture, or SIA. Next is we have Dr. Dao T. An. He is the Vice President from the Vietnam Academy of Agricultural Science. Last but not the least, we have Dr. Santi Charanporn Patana. He is the Director of Science, Technology and Innovation Policy Institute, King Mongkut University of Technology, Thonburi, Thailand. So these 5 speakers with support from the rapporteur will be able to shed some light on how food systems, by using profile and policy, to really look into how we can see the food system in the implementation from these lenses. A small announcement to the audience. So the proceeding of the session will be, we will have about 20 minutes for the presenter to introduce the topic. We will have a brief minutes for clarification and discussion. All the discussion about the session topic and theme will be brought to the end of the session after all presentations are made. So please be patient and stay with us all the way through. Nonetheless, the audience are encouraged to put your questions in the Q&A box. If you want to direct the question to any of the presenter, kindly do so by mention the name in the Q&A box so that the presentation could prepare and then respond to the questions either directly or will be brought to the main plenary session at the end of the session. Before wrapping up the session, each of the speakers will have final 2 minutes just to present their final remarks, take home message on how the sessions should be looked into in the future and how we can really take some of the experience for further implementation of food systems in respective countries. I hope with this introduction, everyone is ready for the start of the session. Without further ado, I would like just to kindly invite Dr. Benjamin Belton, who will be presenting to us under the topic of specialization, scale, and spillover in Southeast Asia, transforming food systems. Dr. Benjamin, if you are ready, I would like to turn over the floor to you, please.
Thank you very much. As you've said, I'm going to be talking today about specialization, scale, and spillovers in South and Southeast Asia's agriculture and the links to its transforming food systems. So if we look at the sort of debate on agriculture in Asia, we sort of see an emphasis on sort of a multitude of traditional smallholders. So smallholder farmers, generally thought of as being traditional in terms of sort of level of integration into markets and the types of technologies used. And this is sort of contrasted with the idea that there's eventually going to be processes of modernization and concentration within agriculture, which will cause these smallholders to disappear. And we can see this sort of idea illustrated in these 2 points, these 2 quotes here. One is from a recent proposal to the CGIAR, and it says South Asia's agricultural systems are dominated by millions of smallholders. Most are unable to participate in markets due to weak market linkages, unsustainable supply chains, and this results in low farm diversification, low farm incomes. So the idea that there are very large numbers of these smallholders who are not really fully participating in markets. And then the second quote is saying that the production efficiency of small farms has declined relative to large farms in many Asian countries. So small farms in Asia are at an increasing disadvantage, and therefore, over time, these small farms are set to disappear and will have more concentration and modernization within the sector. So what I'd like to argue in this presentation is that actually there's a very large segment of intermediate farms that fall somewhere between these 2 poles, both in terms of technology and or in terms of size, and they rarely feature centrally in the debate on Asian agriculture. So there are two sort of broad groups of these intermediate farms that exist somewhat along a continuum. The first group are smallholders, often growing grains and staples. So these are thought of very often as being the traditional smallholders, but in actual fact, they're already very deeply integrated into multiple markets for inputs, for produce, for labor, land, credit, machinery, and so on. They are simultaneously lessening their dependence on agriculture, however, because livelihoods are becoming much more diversified. But nevertheless, as I will argue here, they're continuing to maintain land and farming primarily as a buffer against shocks as part of a diversified livelihood portfolio. Then the second set of farms we might call specialized small and medium scale farms. And these are typically producing higher value crops such as poultry, livestock, fish, horticultural crops in response to diversified demand from urban areas. So let's talk first about the smallholders. So already for a long time in the lowlands, so rice growing areas, the smallholders have already been sort of highly integrated into markets. In the uplands, this process of commercialization has been more recent, but it's been very rapid and still ongoing. And so we have widespread use of purchased inputs, hired labor, hired machinery, often farms generating large marketed surpluses, so selling a big share of what they produce, and we have engagement in land markets. So over time, the sizes of these farms, rather than undergoing consolidation, are actually shrinking. So this is because the land frontier is closed and land is inherited and then subdivided at inheritance. So very often the size of subsistence level, that the farms are not large enough to sustain a household, in terms of production, in terms of its entire livelihood. And so partly as a result, we have high levels of non-farm activity by these farm households, including but not limited to migration. So actually these smallholders, rather than starting to disappear, have proven highly persistent. There's little evidence that this predicted consolidation is taking place, despite the fact that these farms themselves tend to generate fairly low levels of income. And the geographer Jonathan Rigg argues very convincingly, I think, that both land and farming is being preserved by these households because it serves as a buffer against shocks and the precarious nature of non-farm work. And I think that comes through really clearly in the recent COVID-19 crisis, where households that have maintained access to land are able to use that to help them to get through the crisis. So just to illustrate these points, with reference to some data from Myanmar, here you see data from the dry zone, which is a lowland area. We see farm households producing a variety of grain crops, and most of those households are producing for sale, and most of the households for all of these crops are producing a large marketed surplus. Even for paddy, which is thought of as being the sort of the quintessential subsistence crop, a large share of that is being produced for the market. In the uplands, we also see rapid commercialization. So this is some data from Shan State in Myanmar. And so here, hybrid maize was introduced by the company CP in 1998. And we see a big increase in the number of households planting hybrid maize, and with that, a big increase in the use of fertilizer and other agricultural inputs, and very rapid expansion of the production of this crop for the market. So within a 20-year period, we have almost half of the households growing maize for sale. We also see a really high dependence on markets for accessing food, even in rural areas. So this is some data from Bangladesh for rural households. It's a nationally representative survey. And you can see here that the blue bars are the share of food that's purchased. And so 85% of all food that's consumed in rural areas in value terms is purchased. And even for landed households, 75% of the food that they consume in value terms is purchased. And that's kind of consistent no matter how much land they own as well. So really high integration into markets for food, also in terms of purchases, partly because farm sizes are so small. People are simply not able to meet all of their food needs. Moving back to Myanmar, we see really high levels of participation in off-farm work. So the grey bars here are the share of households who, in rural areas in the Ayeyarwady Delta, who only work off-farm. The blue bars are the share of households who basically only have farm income, and moving from the poorest to the wealthiest. And you can see, even amongst the households with the most land, very high levels of work off farm. So moving on now to the specialized small and medium scale farms, and I'm going to talk here primarily about livestock and aquaculture, but many of these comments would also apply to sort of horticulture. And so in these two images, you sort of see the two extremes of the debate. On the left-hand side, we have this farmer with a single cow, and on the right-hand side, we see that the world's largest pig farm in China. But actually, in between these two extremes, there are large numbers of these sort of medium-scale specialized farms like we see here. On the left, these are poultry houses over fish ponds, and on the right, this is a sort of a small to medium-sized pig farm. So these kinds of farms have been growing really rapidly. These two maps here show the density of poultry farms within 100 kilometers of Yangon. This is taken from an analysis of satellite images. And you can see that from 2014 to 2018, the number of poultry farms essentially doubled, and also the number of locations, the number of townships where there are poultry farms doubled. So a very rapid expansion over this time with the growing economy in Myanmar. And so this is the area around Yangon. You can see also here that the blue on this map are fish ponds, again clustered in this peri-urban zone around Yangon. So very often these specialized farms clustered in this way. These are proximity to urban markets, short travel and transport times and transport costs, access to inputs that are produced or imported into urban areas, and complementarities with other peri-urban activities like agro-processing and construction. And so where we have these dense clusters of commercial farms, we also have rapid growth in other segments of the value chain. So this is some data from a survey that right in the middle of that area of blue on the map. And so we asked villages how many different enterprises in the aquaculture value chain there were in 2016, and then 10 years earlier in 2006. And you can see there are many different kinds of enterprises in these villages, and that the numbers increased very rapidly over this 10-year period when the area of ponds was also increasing. So the growth of farms has been facilitated by businesses upstream and downstream of the farm in the value chain. This is referred to as the quiet revolution by my colleague Tom Reardon. And so this is also some data from this same area, this dense cluster of fish farms. And so here we tried to model what would be the impact on incomes, both farm incomes and indirect incomes through spillovers. What would be the impact of putting 1 acre of land into production under agriculture, or 1 acre of land into production under fish farming? And so you can see that the green bars are direct income. This is income to the farmer. The blue bars are indirect income. So this is income to farm workers and to businesses in the local economy that benefit when the earnings are spent on goods and services. And so you can see that aquaculture is generating higher direct incomes than agriculture, but also higher indirect incomes. So there's more demand for labor, more demand for goods, more income that's being spent locally. And so large employment and income spillover is generated. And then a final effect is that we see over time, where we've had this rapid growth of poultry and fish, the real prices have declined. So this is a price index from adjusted for inflation running from 2008 to 2018. You can see over time in Myanmar that chickens, eggs, farm fish got cheaper, and so beef and mutton and wild fish became scarcer and became more expensive. So to sum up, narratives around the scale of aquaculture often invoke this sort of bimodal model where we have large numbers of small traditional farms which are thought to be in long-term decline versus this emerging modern segment of larger farms. But I've argued here that this gives inadequate recognition to this very large intermediate segment of two farms. They're comprised of two broad types. First of all, smallholder farms that are growing traditional crops like staples and grains, but are already well in many markets. And they're persisting as an important part of diverse livelihood portfolios, even as farm sizes and incomes shrink. So they're not going away. They serve an important function in those livelihood portfolios. The second set of farms are these specialized small and medium scale farms that have grown very rapidly in response to diversified demand, particularly from domestic urban markets, and the potential to generate high returns. And so there's limited direct involvement by poorer households in this type of farming, but there are potentially large economic spillovers where we find clusters of these farms through labor markets and so on, and also spillovers in terms of reductions in the price of nutritious foods. And I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Benjamin, for this presentation. I think you have brought up one of the usual kind of observation and comments referring to the scale of farms. And of course, you advocate that size, small in size, does not always mean that they are not commercial. They are unproductive. And there is also inadequate or insufficient recognition of intermediate type of farming. As you can see, it's growing. I have two quick follow-up questions to what you have presented. One is that, yes, there is a trend to see that small size farm started to be a bit more commercialized farming. And they tend also to have some sort of very unique specialized production. But there are still a large number of small size farm or smallholder farmers are in the process of becoming more commercialized or doing farm as a business. My question to you is that what might be some factors, success factor that we could gradually bring these smallholders or small size farm gradually towards the commercialized farming, so that they can really be more productive and they can really gain benefit of relying on agriculture as a main livelihoods. What might be some consideration and thought that make them to gradually shift towards farming as a business or doing commercialized farming, even they are small in size? Dr. Benjamin, please.
Thank you for the question. So how can these farms become sort of further commercialized? How can they become sort of viable? I think maybe there's kind of segmentation going on within within agriculture. So we have actually quite a large number of farms that small farms that, even though they're well integrated into markets already and they're actually quite commercially oriented, because of their small size, they're never going to be they're never going to generate huge incomes for the households, but nevertheless, they're important for those households. They're important as part of this diverse livelihood portfolio that includes many different activities, and we see the importance as a sort of a buffer against shocks, as a hedge against risk. You know, in the context of a crisis like COVID-19, where, for instance, remittance incomes are reduced, off-farm work becomes harder to find, and so I think for these households, it makes sense to just kind of continue maintaining agriculture sort of in this way. It's difficult for them to really kind of expand or change a lot. For this other set of farms, this more specialized set of farms, typically this tends to be like, maybe you could call it maybe sort of a middle class segment of farms. So sometimes they're, you know, oftentimes they're existing farms who have been able to sort of invest in these new crops. In other cases, they may even be urban households or households that were not engaged in farming, who have seen this as an investment opportunity, oftentimes renting land, and so actually sort of use this as an opportunity to invest and accumulate. And so there's almost sort of two different logics involved for these two different types of farms.
All right, thank you, Dr. Benjamin. I have another question. Perhaps I will rest this towards the end. Just a quick heads up to you. Besides looking into the size of farming, there is also a general trend in Southeast Asia that small farms are working together in a form of larger farm or mega farm. This is also a trend that we are seeing in Southeast Asia. I hope perhaps towards the end you could also shed some light whether there are also similar consideration in terms of how this small size farms, smallholder farmers, but working in a more, you know, mega farm, and that they can turn into a more commercial farming and business accessing or it to be integrated into the market and value chain. Will this continue to be the trend, and whether we can look into how we can replicate this success? So I need to jump into the next topic, but I leave this as a topic for you to perhaps touch upon at the end of the session, Dr. Benjamin. Thank you so much for the insight and observation you have brought to us. Allow me just to introduce the next presenter. So Dr. Adi Djoko Kuritno, he will be speaking to all of us on differences in impact on sustainability-based supply chain certification on nucleus and plasma tea plantation. This is the case in Central Java, Indonesia. Dr. Adi, if you are ready, please, the floor is over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Surya, Chair of this session. Principals, Dr. Pia Wong and Dr. Ponsiri from Thammasat and Chiang Mai University. Good morning to all participants. Thank you also for the time and given to me. Starting this presentation, I would like to thank Honorable Dean of Faculty of Economics, Thammasat University, especially to Dr. Ora Raffles Mapasinuwang, who has invited me to this conference. Also to the committees, especially Noki and PAM, who made preparation several times so that everything runs smoothly. My presentation was entitled Differences in Impact on Sustainability-Based Supply Chain Certification on Nucleus and Plasma Deplantation. This research case study in deplantation in Central Java, Indonesia. This research was carried out in collaboration between the research team and the tea company in Indonesia, PT Pakilari. I conduct this research with my colleagues from the same department, Department of Agro-Industrial Technology, Gajah Mada University. There are Miss Rosa Amalia and Miss Megita Tanubuti. In Indonesia, in this slide, which says Indonesia have many highlands, produce quite a lot of tea. So the 8th largest tea producer in the world. And economically, tea is quite contributing, especially in mountainous area when plantations are located. It can be seen in the graph that production is dominated by government on plantation compared to private plantation and smallholder on plantation. But the smallholder on plantation contributed to the highest portion of land area. Next, regarding the topic of this conference on the influence of COVID-19, of course, the business in Indonesia also experienced a negative contraction by experiencing a decline in production and sales. This happened due to the health reasons. One of the reasons for this decline in sales was due to COVID-19, was affected the auction process, stock, consumer, and export sales. Also, the government imposed that lockdown and community activity restriction that disrupted the distribution process. As seen in this graph, there was a decline in sales of up to 38% in 2020. Next. The sustainability food value chain development is underpinned by perspective of 3 bottom line: economic, social, and environment sustainability. In terms of economic sustainability, the value chain model should provide greater or at least not reduce profit or income. In terms of sustainability, value chain should generate additional value that is equitable distributed, benefits sufficiently large number of pure households. Meanwhile, in environment sustainability aspect, the value chain should create additional value that support green environment. These 3 components have different focuses, and 3 are intersection among them. The intersection between the environment and economy from the green growth, where some green technology such as perhaps conservation agriculture may be more profitable than less environmentally friendly technologies, while other may reduce profits. They use alternative energy sources, for example. Meanwhile, the wedge between environment and social, called eco-social progress, this one, may determine market access or standard compliance and may increase competitiveness or market differentiation of the value chain. Lastly, the overlap between economic and social form inclusive growth. Through encouraging economic growth that is fairly distributed and creating the opportunities of the society. All of these aspects underpin of sustainable food value chain development. Next. This slide shows several types of certification that exist relating to plantation, each of which has differences. Practically, the Rainforest Alliance certification is a certification widely adopted by plantation in Indonesia that focuses on sustainable farming. This environmental certification is considered to ensure environmental standards that are advantageous to the supply chain stakeholders. It also leads to the traceability of raw material, finished product, and distribution process to the buyer. Sustainable production then can be achieved in the agriculture industry can meet the principle of this certification. Next. This is a map of Indonesia, and this research was conducted on the island of Java, especially in the province of Central Java. You can see here the map of Java Island, and my university, Universitas Gadjah Mada, located that nearby area, namely Yogyakarta province. This is a picture area of tea plantation, where the research was carried out in both nucleus plantation and plasma plantation. The main differences is that nucleus is owned by the company and plasma plantation owned by individual tea farmer. The three areas we choose, the first is Jatilawang region from plasma plantation with 20 farmers samples. The second one is Kaliboja region, from plasma plantation also with 20 farmers. And the last is in Batang region, nucleus plantation, different with the two plasma plantation with 35 farmers, also in Central Java. Next is the flow of Rainforest Alliance certification. From the farmers, producers, and multinational companies, who often requires this certification as a part of their concern to the environment and their supply chain. The picture, it can be seen that the high volume of the tea production encourages multinational companies to engage in tea supply chain certification in Indonesia. Multinational companies have the capacity to influence the tea supply chain because their capital power, market share, and trader role. And supply chain certification is very important to maintain supply stability, production sustainability, and environmental awareness. In this slide, shows the tea supply chain that involve nucleus and plasma farmers, where in practice, they also involve middlemen for transportation, here in the green box. The demand for environmental certification is basically based on the demand of trader, which need to be fulfilled by nucleus and plasma plantation as the producers. Some important things related to Rainforest Alliance certification that characterize its actor and their role in supply chain are written on the outside of the box in this picture. For example, for plasma farmer, whose productivity still need to be improved, their understanding of environmental issues is still weak. But the benefit of Rainforest Alliance certification are perceived to be able to increase their productivity and increase their knowledge regarding eco-friendly practices. It is also seen on the role of Rainforest Alliance certification, especially on sustainability, investment and differential, and also role of the government and the supply chain as it involves the economic aspect of plasma farmers. Next up is the tea farmer perception of nucleus and plasma plantation. This table shows how the different perception of Rainforest Alliance certification on the point of view of nucleus plantation and plasma farmers related to environmental, economic, and social factors. It is important to see that plasma farmers feel that the use of chemical fertilizer has decreased. The use of plastics and other chemicals, such as pesticide, has also decreased. This is because in the certification, the use of same chemical component is restricted in very limited amount. Meanwhile, for core farmers or nucleus, the ability to carry out export trade is increasing. Waste management is more regulated, and understanding on the soil fertility is also improving. Next slide is how to successfully implement Rainforest Alliance. Industry and the farmers should be integrated. It can be seen that farmers have several challenges, such as limitation on pesticides, uses that increase weed and pest, decrease on their productivity, and limited subsidies for input production. Meanwhile, for processing factories, several aspects related to the fulfillment of aspect of Rainforest certification and financial support are the main challenge. As in the previous slide, it also explained the impact COVID-19 from farmers, and from tea producers, and also global market. You can see here, for example, from tea farmers, has a longer plucking cycle, decrease in productivity, and decrease in wage income. This difference impact comparing to tea producer and global market. Next slide. What is quite interesting is how the effect of Rainforest Alliance certification on price, wages, and processing costs. It can be seen from the farmers here that the effect of certification is not real from them because of the wages they receive are almost the same, as well as for middlemen and farmer associations. However, from the producers and traders' point of view, this gave an increase in yield. The basic question why this can happen is because tracking and the financial benefit is still lacking. So it doesn't reach the farmer or middleman. In addition, the need for supervision on the implementation of the provision of incentive prices for farmers need to be implemented. Next is the proposed strategy. So what can be proposed from the incidents related to the certification and its effect described earlier? The slide explains the following steps. The orange arrow here indicates business as usual, from farmers going to middlemen, and then going to producer, becoming products as a black tea, and a buy by trader or buyer, and then finally going to customer. Next is the green arrow that explains how Rainforest Alliance certification was introduced by traders to producer and farmers. Of course, these several incentives, including an additional selling price. Next is the gray arrow. It's a proposed strategy that can be developed by including the role of government and financial institutions. Namely, the first is direct contact with the financial institution with farmers to provide soft loan and production facilities. The second is the government issues land and plan. Regulation also input production subsidies. The third, the government provide incentive to producers if there is direct trade with the farmers. And the last, the fourth, the government and financial institution negotiating to provide soft loan opportunities, especially for farmers. Finally, in this slide, I have some conclusion and call for action. From the explanation that I conveyed earlier, several conclusions and calls for action can be obtained as follows. In practice, it is necessary to maintain a sustainable environment in accordance with the requirement in certification. Therefore, it is necessary to take action in the form of rules to protect agriculture areas so that they are not converted to other uses. Second, the advantages in the tea supply chain are most enjoyed by tea traders and buyers. So efforts are needed to include the commodities in strategic commodities to get incentive from the government. Next is the perception that a tool to legalize trade between sellers or industry and buyers as a trader. So that action is needed to protect plasma tea farmers, especially should be protected by the local government. Also, especially aspect of sustainability and economic benefits. The last is the need for a more active government role through regulation and financial support scheme is really needed for plasma farmers so that a low cost credit intervention from the government is needed. This is there are some of the references that I use to support the writing and analysis carried out in my research. This is my last slide. Distinguished conference participants, I hope this presentation can be understood and useful for all of you. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adi. You have presented to all of us one of the good examples to show that sustainability-based supply chain through certification systems could help smallholder farmers to access to global value chain or high quality market, and including be integrated into multinational companies, as what you explained. You also kindly outlined some of the call for actions. I think this is something we need in order to see how we can expand the experience to other crops and agricultural activities. I have two quick follow-up questions to you, Dr. Adi. The first questions that we always hear this question when we listen to presentation about sustainability-based supply chain certification and so on and so forth is first, the burden of cost of certification systems to the farmers. And second is the benefit sharing, whether eventually the farmers will really get sufficient benefit share. Perhaps you already mentioned in your slide, but if you could also shed some light on how we can really ensure this kind of benefit sharing, and it's not adding more cost, but rather to really help to increase income. That's my first point.
Yes.
Second point, if you can briefly respond, is that many of sustainability-based certification always work only the high-value products or niche product. It's difficult to be replicated in a wider scale to other crop or other agricultural products. What would you respond to that kind of statement? Over to you, Dr. Adi, if you can shed some light on this kind of general concern or questions we always have about this sustainability certification. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Suryan, of your question. The first question, I really agree with you. If the cost of certification for the farmers quite expensive, so the cost usually covered by the industry. Yeah, especially for farmers in the nucleus plantation. Usually they have a very tight relation with industry, but not for the plasma farmers, because plasma farmers don't have obligation to sell their tea to the industry. They can sell to other industry. That is the problem. The second one, not only for the cost, the problem also came from the quality, because the certification really prohibit the tea that came with the plantation much using fertilizer and pesticides. So that's why the certification really focuses to the environment friendly, really focuses to the environment that avoid the fertilizer and pesticides. This is the burden for the plasma farmers. And your question is very nice, because we have to ensure about the premium price that received by the, for example, by the traders that came to industry. How we have to ensure that the premium price also going to the farmers? That is the important question until now, because we don't have any regulation or intervention from the government how to share the premium to the farmers, especially for plasma farmers. This is our research that shows in Indonesia, they don't receive anything in the same value, in the same wages, in the same money, but they have another obligation to sell, to comply this one, and this one, but they don't receive any additional money for their house, their tea plantation. That is my first answer. And the second question, Dr. Suryan, I agree also. If in Indonesia the tea plantation is very actually located centralized in Java and Sumatra only, you cannot find the tea plantation in other island in Indonesia. Of course, the certification, because of the requirement is quite hard, and then the cost also high. Only multinational company that can contact it with the certain plantation. Usually strong plantation that have a very tight connection with the multinational company. So if you check to Indonesia, the price a product from the black and green tea is very varied, very varied. The quality also very varied. So that's why in Indonesia, very difficult to control the quality of tea. Only the plantation that covered that minutes together with the big buyer, such as Unilever, can be produce the high quality of tea. Maybe this is my answer, Dr. Suryan. Please, if you have other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Adi, for that clarification. I'm sure that this continue to be an important topic for us to look into what kind of success factor and how we can replicate the success. Of course, we have seen a number of success cases, but it's always an issue on how we can scale the impact and what kind of role of key stakeholder, particularly the government, in trying to ensure that the support incentive is given to the smallholder farmers, and how we can enhance understanding and appreciation of the benefit. Is not only in terms of access to a market, but in terms of how they can have the more stable access to market, how the benefit is shared. I think this is something I hope we can continue to discuss. Thank you, Dr. Adi, for that experience you kindly shared to us.
Welcome.
Now, I would like just to proceed to the next speaker. We have Dr. Thuyen Hui. She will be speaking to us on food system profile. This is an experience from northern Vietnam on how to use food system profile as a knowledge and decision-making tool. I think it's quite an interesting presentation, and certainly this is quite a new kind of topic. So, Dr. Thuyen, if you are ready, the floor is over to you, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you for organizing this very nice event. In that, we have the chance to share with all the participants who are interested in how to use the food system approach in decision making for the contributing to the food system transformation for not only the outcomes in nutrition and health, but also social, economic, and also especially to minimize the negative impact in the environment. So together with other colleagues, Hương Phạm and also Thanh Dương, I would like to bring the summarized but quite comprehensive and also a little bit like emphasize on the process, how we use the food system profiles as a knowledge tool for better decision and action during the food system transformation along the rural-urban transition in Vietnam. So within the time limitations, because that will be the very long process, to start at the beginning to come up with the final engagement with the local stakeholder and also the policy makers. So for today's presentation, we would like to share you the main steps we have endorsed in the whole process, and also share with you on the link that you can download in the full report. Because each step will document well in the full report for your reference and also for your checking whether you can enroll in the context of your country or your site of the research. So because Vietnam underwent the rapid nutrition transition together with the urbanization process in the country, so that we have some trade-off in different outcomes of the system, nutrition and health, social, economic, and also environment. So the decision making on how to match the food system transformation contributing to different outcomes of the food system in the better way, it's not so easy. And then we have to start from something that can be enrolled for all the stakeholders to be engaged, and also for more specific context in each country and each site for decision making. So understanding on the different points of view of different stakeholders and also different levels of the system, we have started some important steps along the process to design and support action to improve the food system performance. In 2017, under the Agriculture for Nutrition and Health Program, that is CG Research Program, we have started a very comprehensive and also with the inclusive methodology with different stakeholder engagement for the whole process. So understanding that very important to get attention and engagement from different stakeholders. So like 2017 to 2021, we have employed the methods to create enabling environment to bring the food system abroad for the context in the country, to not only focus on production but also moving further for other elements of food system in terms of food environment, consumer, and outcome, even the arrival of the food system. So By analyzing the context in the country, we think into how the benchmark efforts for more like accurate and also integrating different efforts among different stakeholders. So from 2018, we started the benchmark effort for food system approach with the stakeholder engagement along the rural and urban transects in the country. Women's the organization in very important context in Vietnam. And then in 2018 and 2020, we have to carry out based on the secondary data and combining with other resources information from the report in the country, and also plus with the primary data collection based on the food system framework to design the tool. We use the knowledge tool we call the food system profile to provide a snapshot to easy to understand in different sectors and different actors in the food system to bring them together to sit on the table to make decision or maybe also to see the trial in different outcomes of the system. And then at the end, in 2021, we have revised the food system profile by the not only the policy engagement in the local context, but also contribute to the country targets to contribute to the voice of the country in the UN food system and also other policy platforms. First of all, this is conceptual framework for the food system analysis. As you can see, it belongs to different sectors, different ministries in the country. So we also recognize it will require different data sources and also expertise from multi-ministry organization and also actors. And because it's quite complicated under the rapid organization and also other rivals in the country, given the uncertainties at the global scale, so we have tried our best to employ all the existing resources and also other data from different ministries in the country. We analyze the mapping and also to see what can be shared or what can be merged among different data resources. So based on the other products, especially we recognize the SLP report, that's the food system framework mentioned in the report in very, like the what we will do in the country, and then we involve all the scientific products developed by the agriculture for nutrition and health program with the matrix to analyze and improve the diets, and also other existing products on the reviews and also the stakeholder engagement for the food system in the country. We employ to the district level, and we analyze on the secondary data to see what's available and what we need to get further from the primary data collection. And together we make it like in a more visualization product in the food system profile to make it in the best way, in a simple way, and also easy to understand for the district level to provide them the knowledge tool for sitting together and making decisions. I will share you the full link in that one. You can download all the food system profile with very detailed and comprehensive page. And that's when we mention clearly on the indicators and its elements of the food system and the outcome of the food system. And understanding that food systems is very large and we need more resources. So we use the approach of the benchmark side, and that we would like to encourage other projects and activities under the same geography. And together with our food system profile, there are other projects in the same site that explore about informal food flows by using the free Wi-Fi in the West Market in one of our district sites. And also others based on the primary data collected, we go further to analyze on the linkage of the diets, the food choice, and environmental impact in the benchmark site in the rural, peri-urban, and urban to provide more evidence-based contributing together with the food system profile for the farm process in decision making. So this is the quite comprehensive way we look at the information we have, and we go to have more scientific products to contribute to revise the knowledge and also better context and decision making process needs some data and information to contribute to their decision. So we use all the expertise from different team members, develop a wide set of the scientific products to revise that kind of information. In addition to the food system profiles, we also employ some more like more attractive and visualization way to explore the food environment in Vietnam because it's under the rapid urbanization. So it will be the mixed traditional food system plus with the modern food system together. So we need to do the typology to understand more about the food system, the food environment in the country, and make it more visualized in this site. So when you click in the link here, you can also experience some new way to visualize the information for more like effective way to enrich the data. And when we finish on the scientific product and also use different anchoring projects to complement the information that we have, we also go with the policy engagement along the rural urban context, but also trying to provide more elements to contribute the country target. So based on the food system profiles, the different stakeholders can in agriculture, in trading, and also in health sector, and also other sector, they can look at the information in the profiles and link with the duty or the task they are doing in the management in the social economic development in the country. They can understand more through the indicator, the more comprehensive type of the indicator. Otherwise, clear for them. Yeah, they are in charge in agriculture. However, that will lead to the linkage in food environment and how the outcomes, intermediate outcome in diet, and then leads to the outcome in nutrition and health of the people. So all of them need to sit together, understand more about the linkage of different elements and how it leads to the better nutrition and health outcomes, and also other outcomes of the system. So we also develop a one comprehensive tools to assist with the whole process of the bottom up and participatory approach of the in the policy engagement in the site. We set up the list of the criteria to identify the top 3 issues in each site, and then together with different both quantitative and qualitative analysis methods, we go with the top 3 solutions for each issue and identify which actor in not only the local context but also national and even other international organizations who have any work related to the site to match the synergies and also to look back who does what and how to support each other, like the more working way to know the overall picture, to provide the better understanding, to mobilize more resources and mobilize more like even the technical support from different stakeholders to the policy engagement process. So in that way, we go together with the government, but the government like the coordination board and also participation, the calls for the engagement and bonds from different stakeholders in the local context to make it more comprehensive and system solution to show the top issue to contribute to the socio-economic development plan to make it benefit for the local citizens. And also look further to contribute to the target of the country to achieve the sustainable development goals that the country comes committed. So not at the local context, we also try our best to use the evidence in the tool and also the very comprehensive package of the indicator in the food system element in the driver to contribute to the country's target. So the first one we engage here about the Djoko National Action Plan. And that's why we go together with the government for technical support to develop the nutrition sensitive agriculture model to achieve the 5 objectives under the Djoko National Action Plan in the country. You can see here in the slide, you can click on the link, and that's why we tried our first effort to overlay different types of the data sets in terms of the agriculture and also nutrition indicator and also diet indicator, etc. together to match it on like in the visualization way to easier for the management and monitoring by looking in the site. They can know different indicators for solving the current status of the communes at the communes in this level in the side of the Djoko National Action Plan, and then contributing to better decision making at the national level for the especially the 1,004 communes under the program. And based on our work, we also go further for the next step in 2021 to go together with other stakeholders to for the food system transformation to contribute to evidence-based for the development to also other stakeholders to list the series of the dialogue on the food system in the country and contribute to the UN Food System Summit in 2021. And in the next presentation presented by Dr. Đạo Viễn, you will know more information from the government's commitment, but it's a pleasure for all the scientific progress to revise the tools to realize evidence and also the experience sharing, not only in the local context, but also the national targets to national targets in the country and go further for the upcoming potential plan on the food system transformation. And we hope that with all the effort, we can realize the set of scientific progress that can be useful for all the actors in the industry to look at the range, not only in the center, but like the consumer, but on the rest of the consumer inside of the food system and all the outcomes of the food system will affect not only our generation, but also other next generation in the future. Yeah, thank you very much for your attention, and please feel free to go to the scientific progress to read for more information and get back to us if you would like to share more experience on how we have done different steps, because that will be very comprehensive and full of the whole bucket. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nguyen. I think you have brought to us a very interesting topic of using food system profiling as a way of collecting knowledge from various stakeholders as a basis for making decisions and also taking actions. I think this is quite a new approach and something we can learn from. I'm also pleased to see that the initiative has been taken quite early since 2017, and you're still working on it as a basis to support food system transformation in Vietnam. I have two quick follow-up questions, Dr. Nguyen. If you can shed some light on the process. The first question would be, who are the key stakeholders you work with in conducting food system profiling, and who facilitated the process? That's the first question. Yeah. Second question, I think the process of doing food system profiling would be quite an interesting experience. Could you shed some light? What are success factors or key lessons you have learned in conducting the process, so that we can use this as some sort of basis where other countries may wish to really follow or use the same profiling as the tool for decision and actions. Over to you, Dr. Nguyen.
Yeah, thank you very much for raising two also very interesting questions that I also would like to have a chance to share with you. And those the food system abroad is still quite early because we just did in one context in the northern Vietnam under the rule of urban transit. However, we can share with you because we think that's also useful, because it took us like several years to learn from everything from a local scale on how to involve the framework in the context of the country. And we also must ask kind of question, like you're asking me right now, to know who should be involved and who should facilitate, etc. And I believe that in different contexts, maybe that can be different, but in general, I can say with you that when look at the food system, we need first the food system framework, right? Also identify all the sectors related to the food system profiles and the driver. So you need first to sit together with the core group of the members in your research team and your national partner first to see who stick with which element. For example, in the context of our site, we have the food supply chain stick more with the agriculture sector and rural development, and also with the trading, with the market system, and food environment related to like the cross cutting from industry, trade, agriculture, and health. And then for consumer and outcomes in the nutrition and health, it stick with the health sector. And the environment stick with agriculture sector and environmental sector. So first, use the framework to identify the map with the current management system in each country and to see first the national ministries level, the national system management, and then go down a little bit on the not only the planning level, but the implementation level in the context of the country to see what's the difference of that system. And then you engage not only from the public, but also from the academy and research organization to employ all the existing data sources, existing experience from their project to build up who should be engaged because they also do some specific projects in each sector, in agriculture, for example, or in nutrition. So based on their findings, we can approach more stakeholders in each sector further. So with the public sector, private sector, and then try a little bit to implementation level with the farmer union, with the local authority and farmers and also traders in the market system and the consumer like the end user in the approach. So I mean we have to be touch up to identify what will be the framework because framework very important to guide the overall picture and you need to map the stakeholder in the pitch of the element the system like that. Yeah. So for who facilitate, it also depends a lot on the levels you would like to do the engagement. For example, if we map the policy impact because this seminar focus more on the policy action. So I would like to emphasize more on the policy impact. And because besides with the policy impact, we have the area business impact and also development impact that can contribute to the outcome of the system and much more impact level in the country. But with the policy engagement and policy impact pathway, we can think more about national level. You need to facilitate with the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Health, etc. They need to be with us because the food system links to different ministries. So to facilitate, that will be the joint effort to facilitate. So not only one effort, much different. So the next one, your question about key lessons. So the first thing I think, first, we need to have a framework, a conceptual framework, to have to agree to move on first, and then much in common understanding among different stakeholders before we go to decide any activities. We need to raise awareness. We need to get motivation and why we need to work together, employ the system thinking to solve the issue, to solve the challenges in the food system, not only in one sector. So that will be very important. The enabling environment will be the key lesson to learn to raise awareness with all the stakeholders with common understanding. To manage, we need to spend time to create something very specific context in the level you would like to target at the local district or the implementation on the national business value. And that's why you need to be based on the some indicator in social economic development and map the indicator they are working right now to the food system framework and to visualize for them. Yeah, it's not something new. It's just the way to make more comprehensive and system thinking to bring the sector together. So we do not only stay in one piece anymore, but stay in other pieces to make it more synergies and to minimize the chaos. Yeah. So that's the way, the key lesson. We need to use the framework. The second one, common understanding among different stakeholders. The third must build the trust among each other and also make them feel it's not something new, it's not complicated, it's not abstract, but you mark yourself specific task, specific indicator you are doing to the bigger picture. So big key lesson like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tuen. This is sound very interesting. I think you have explained that if we are serious about food system transformation, food system profiling could really offer some sort of initial steps where information, knowledge could be collected through the view and experience of not only multi-stakeholder, but multi-sector, that look into food systems from various angles. And what I think could be also a topic that we can continue to discuss and look into the future is what kind of capacity knowledge and skill in facilitating the food system profiling exercise. I think this is something perhaps we can look into collecting more experience, and I would like to wish your team, Dr. Chuen, all the best. I think there's still much to be learned from you, and hopefully we could hear more experience in the future. Thank you very much once again. Now, let us go to the next speaker, who will also speak relating to Dr. Chuen topics. Dr. Dao Tian will be presenting Vietnam food systems, the characteristics, challenges, and opportunities. I think this will be a complementary. Some of the issues that we have heard from Dr. Chuen could be further elaborated by Dr. Dao. Sir, if you are ready, the floor is over to you, please. Thank you.
So, thank you, the chair. So, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Vietnamese food characteristic, challenge, and opportunities. So this is a result of a diagnosis in the food system, and also inspiring the approach food system profiles that Dr. Chuen already present previously. So we use the food system framework proposed by high-level panel food securities. So try to draw a picture of whole food system, not only production but also distribution, processing, and consumption, and focusing in the four outcomes of the food system. Firstly, is nutrition and food securities. Secondly, the socio-economic welfare and income, and thirdly is environmental issue. So you can see that about the food securities, Vietnam is exported country of rice, and this exporting quantity is still stable during the last 10 years. Also, the rice productivity is increased stably due to the Green Revolution result. And our agriculture is mostly based in small farm, very small farm. We can say that even micro farm, less than 1 hectare. So in terms of economy, the agriculture now represent about 14% to the GDP, and the export value of agriculture and fishery sector is still increasing year by year. And the agriculture also create a lot of employment and livelihood to farmers in rural area. Also, the agriculture and food production is provide good contribution to the nutrition securities and health. But even the growing production every year, we still face a triple burden outcome of the nutrition. This is malnutrition for children under 5 years, and the micro nutrition deficiency, and the overweight and obesity is emerging and increasing fast, mostly in the large city. Also, the problem of COVID-19 is has a lot of negative impact on the food system. With the high intensive agricultural system of Green Revolution, the negative environmental impact is also very great, and green emission from agriculture represent about 30% of the total green emission. And the food loss and food waste in the food value chain is about 25%. So this is a very large number. When you have a lot of effort to increase 5% of the productivity, is very difficult, but we can lose 20 to 30% very easy. So here we can see that our food security in general at national level is still increasing fast. But the income of rice producer have tendency to decrease. This is the major problem because of small farm. So Vietnam agriculture is, have a new strategy strongly to diversify to other crops such as cash crop and mostly fruit, vegetable, and then industrial crops such as tea, coffee, cashew, pepper, etc. So even the COVID situation 1921, the Vietnam agriculture still export increasingly, and we have established the record of value of agricultural exportation last year because the demand in the world market is increasing fast. As I mentioned previously, even the exportation, the food system diagnosis can give us a full picture of the sustainability of the food system. So we can see that in several area and at household level, the malnutrition, the micronutrient deficiency, and the overweight problem, the burden for the nutrition security that the food system have to resolve in the future. So we can see that the malnutrition mostly allocate in the remote area, mostly northern mountain or central highland mountainous area where we have a lot of poor farmer and disadvantaged condition for production in mountainous area. And even in some area where we have high food exportation like central highland, the malnutrition is also very high. This means the problem of food system should be resolved because the food system cannot be only focused on the productivities. Another concern is food safety. With a lot of small farm, more than 8 million of small farm, the food safety is always a major concern of consumer in Vietnam because difficulty to control food safety with a lot of small farm. The Green Revolution also create some impact on the use of chemical, and you can see that Vietnam is among highest importation of insecticides among Asian countries. Thailand already decreased a lot, but Vietnam importation is still increasing. So we hope that in the future we should control the use of chemical fertilizer and mostly insecticide. So the objective of the Ministry of Agriculture is to reduce 50% of insecticide use in agriculture. And with the very high intensification, the environmental degradation is important and mostly related to the deforestation in mountainous area to intensify the mess in sloping land, for example, in this picture. So the policy of Vietnam, in order to resolve the problem of small-scale farmer efficiency, is to promote the cooperative because large farm in Vietnam, they don't invest in the production area, but they invest mostly in the processing and then marketing in the value chain. So for the production, mostly cooperative, and Vietnam have the incentive to promote the new cooperative to support small farm to do business in agriculture. But this is a very new cooperative law since 2012. So the cooperative mostly is small scale, and then the impact on the production support for small farm is still not clear. And capacity of cooperative, agricultural cooperative in the future still need to be enhanced. So in terms of new tendency of urbanization, consumption, we can see that the consumption of rice is decreasing and other stuff, food such as vegetable, meat increasing. And also modernizing of distribution system in the large city increasing. But the moderate distribution up to now represent only less than 20%. So this is key point about Vietnamese food system. We can observe a rapid transformation, and this is vitally important for the economic. And we need a multi-sectoral approach with the whole value chain, production, distribution, and consumption working together. So the interconnected and complex across the ministry, like Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Trade, of Health, and Science Technology. But the food system is still very vulnerable, facing to the new risks of climate change, the new disease, or the fluctuation of the market, domestic market, and then world market. So this is requiring urgent collective action and collaborative action amongst the stakeholders in the value chain and also across ministry. But we can see that food system in Vietnam can offer some opportunities for transformation in the next 10 years. So the resilience and safer production by promoting agroecological approach in the production. So we have to reduce and control the chemical use and reduce the negative impact on the environment to produce healthy food and supplying to consumer, and to promote sustainable consumption and diversified diet. Even in some area in Vietnam, like in mountainous areas, commercialized agriculture and export is promoted, but the malnutrition is still important due to the lack of diversity of local production areas. So the lack of availability of the diversified food in the local market. So we promote also under the Zero Hunger framework the approach of nutrition sensitive agriculture for mountainous area and for disadvantaged area. So for the value chain, we focus on the competitive and transparent and inclusive, creating opportunity for small farm in the value chain, and by the promoting the contract farming between farmer cooperative and business linkages. So the other opportunity for food system in transformation in Vietnam is to increase availability of the food and the use of food for better nutrition in mountainous area. And the education is important and communication is important for educate the consumer at a different level. So with the result of food system dialogue, we in Vietnam we are focusing in the 5 objectives and action track that we input this in the national action plan as a tool for coordination. So firstly, ensuring the access safe and nutrition food for all people in different area, and secondly, shifting to a sustainable consumption pattern with diversification of diet and also reducing of food loss and food waste in the post-harvest and consumption stage, and promoting sustainable food production at scale. So with orientation to agroecology to 2030, and develop competitive and inclusive equitable food value chain for domestic and for exportation. And lastly, we pay attention to build the resilience for the vulnerability, shock, and stress due to the climate change, due to the disease and market fluctuation of disadvantaged groups such as women, young, and ethnic minorities. So, Vietnam Food System Action Plan is the objective is to integrate different strategy and policy of Vietnam in the agricultural sector, in the trade sector, and in the health and nutrition sector. Because in the past we have different strategy, but the cooperation and integration at the macro level and also at local level is very limited and not effective. So different the action for the cooperation and collective action between the small the actor in the food value chain, food system for production, for processing, distribution, and for consumption is increasing. And the National Food System Action Plan that we hope that our Prime Minister will approve next month. A tool for controlling the investment, innovation, and the collaboration, and also the reporting with the system to build a system of indicator for monitoring and reporting. So the objective is 2030 is the next 10 years that we will have a food system more responsive, more sustainable, and more transparent for the next 10 years. So the action. Now Vietnam is actively participating in different international initiatives such as the agroecology coalition in order to exchange innovation experience to promote agroecology in different areas, in different sectors. We also try to work on to build a food innovation hub. That's proposed, the initiative proposed one economic forum. But in Vietnam, we focus on the post-harvest and processing, because in Vietnam, the post-harvest and processing conservation of food is still limited capacity. So the food loss and food waste is still very high, right? And we also involving is 1 million farmer initiative, try to limit the emission from agriculture. And the objective is 2030 is to reduce 20% of the greenhouse gas emission from agriculture. So I think that the food system can bring us the integrated and comprehensive picture of the whole food system, and to call for the action of the collaboration between different sector, different actor in the food system, in the agri-food value chain. And I think that regional cooperation for food system is needed for research and for exchange of policy experience. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Dr. Dao, for sharing your experience about Vietnam food systems. I think what I collected from your presentation is that you have demonstrated the process, how Vietnamese stakeholders working together using food system framework and help to really interpret it in Vietnamese context. Surely we have learned from your case and also other countries about how food systems provide all of us, a more holistic understanding of the importance and interlinkages of various issues, various sectors that shape our food systems. And you have demonstrated how it is look like. What are the process that you have done so far? I always have one question received whenever I moderate sessions or meeting about food systems, is that on one hand, food systems give us a very good holistic understanding, but it's always a challenge when we look into taking actions, because action would need to go specific and really relate to each of the stakeholder mandate and responsibilities. My question to you, Dr. Dao, in case of your experience, how you can maintain this kind of holistic understanding of food system on one hand, but at the same time also be clear on what action needs to be taken by whom and who facilitated this process of holistic and specific actions, so that food system remain to be an overarching framework for all stakeholders involved. Dr. Dao, could you share some of your experience, how this is sort of maintained? Please, over to you.
Thank you. I think that the food system approach in Vietnam is not completely new since 2021, but we already start to use, as Dr. Tuan previously already mentioned, we apply the food system approach in the action plan for zero hunger since 2017 at macro level. So we, at macro level, we already established a coordination unit and under Ministry of Agriculture, but the role is presided by a Vice Prime Minister, and to coordinate the policy action across Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Trade, for different to see a different outcome, and to set up a system of monitoring indicator for the whole food system in order to assess and monitor the sustainability and progress of the food system. But in the Zero Hunger program, we only focus in some remote area and poor area. And we think that the most important is how to apply the integrated approach of food system at local level, because up to now, when we have one family farmer, but they will receive the support from nutrition, they will receive from trade department and departments separately. And then I think that this is very difficult for farmer household. And in the Zero Hunger, we already established some multidisciplinary group of research and also try to bring a kind of methodology for diagnostic of the food system and also training for local developer, local policy staff at the provincial and district level to see what about the food system, and also trying to train for local cooperatives and farmers to build the integrated project in order to access to the national support. So in this kind of integrated project, we include agricultural nutrition sensitive. That means not only support for production, but also the education and intervention for nutrition in order to guarantee that local production system can at the same time provide productivities and income for farmer, but also the nutrition security for farmers. That not only for sale, because in general we see that Vietnamese farmer, they in the past the good product they don't eat, they want to sell in order to get the money, and they eat bad quality. So we have to support farmer to change this kind of behaviors in order to have more sustainability. So we think that the Vietnam case with the new national action plan of the food system, this time we'd like to multiply this approach for the whole area of the country, not only focusing in a remote area, and using the food national action plan as a coordination tool for across ministry for integration of policy realization at local level, and also the call for international donors such as the World Bank, ADB, the research organizations such as the CG system and other bilateral donors to work together and try to match and reducing the overlapping of the intervention in the food system and maybe creating some synergy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dao, for that clarification. I think 2 quick points I got from your explanation is that the mechanism of implementing food systems is not completely a new invention. In case of Vietnam, you make use of previous experience on zero hunger, which already in place in working together with many or multiple but use so-called food system framework as the concept and strengthen existing mechanisms so that you build on top of the mechanism that's already well established, and then therefore expand this kind of food systems so as to give a holistic understanding among the agency and stakeholder concerned. You have also brought up one important, interesting point, which is the need to look into the implementation at the local government, at the local level. Much of the experience we have heard remain at the national level, but trickling down effect to the local, provincial, subnational level is still to be learned. So I hope that there will be more opportunity for us to really look into this so-called subnational local implementation of the food systems and what kind of capacity that we need to build in order to ensure that the implementation is done on the ground. I also would like to recognize the information kindly shared by Dr. Nguyen on the bottom participatory prioritization and identification of potential actions and intervention in the chat box. For those who are interested in the Vietnamese case, please have a look at the information. I think there's much to be learned from. Thank you, Dr. Dao, for that intervention and also sharing of experience. Now allow me to go to the last but not the least presenter of this session, Dr. Santi Charanporn Patana. He will be speaking about Thailand food systems. I hope this will give also another experience on the approach and also ways that Thailand started to pick up food systems and what type of status that Thailand is at the moment and what are the future directions Thailand intend to do. Dr. Santi, if you are ready, please, the floor is over to you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Suyan, and thank you, speakers and audience. So I like to talk about my research. Okay, this is about the Thailand food systems that I think we share the similar approach with the Vietnamese speakers, Dr. Nguyen and Dr. Dao, that they speak very clearly in Vietnam context. Okay, so this is the research project funded by the Agricultural Research Development Agencies under Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperative in Thailand, and we are in cooperation with the other agencies like NASDA, Mahidol University, Kasetsart University, and Expo and Prince of Songkhla University also. So first of all, I'd like to say food is essential, kind of essential necessities for everybody, right? For Thailand, not only in that sense, but food is also important as an economic engine for Thai economy also. And food is also a kind of cultural things. This leads to another value like tourism, industry, and so on. So food for Thai context is very large and very complex. So we try to look at the food sector with a systematic approach as a similar way as what the Vietnamese speaker just said. Okay, we start with the theoretical framework. Says we review many ways of doing the food system. Okay, and there are a variety of framework that being studied from many scholars. However, most of them share some common components. Okay, so every framework have the food system activities about the value chains of the food sector. All of them talk about the food system drivers. Okay, what are the drivers that drive food system or impacted by food sector? Okay, and also every framework talk about food system outcome. So what are the expected outcome for their context? Okay, and the food system approach here trying to look at the complex system with the systematic structures. Okay, this is what I think we use, and we hope that this approach would lay the foundation for the policy making process of the countries. Okay, in food system there are many definitions that has been made. We look at the food system defined by the Food System Summit last year. is the constellation of activities involved in producing, processing, transporting, and consuming food. And food system touch every aspect of the human existence. This is what we talk in from many speakers already. And we think food system has, if we do it well, we has the power to bring prosperity to families, to community, and to the nation. And food system is very closely related to the Sustainable Development Goals that proposed by UN that we are talking about. And this is the proposed framework from the summit. I think we share the same framework as Dr. Dao just said for the last sessions. We have seen 5 action tracks down here. Say action track 1 about access to safe, nutritious food for all. Okay, action track number 2 about sustainable consumptions. Okay, and number 3 about the nature positive productions. Number 4 about livelihoods and equality. We talk about the allocation of the benefit among the players in the value chain, and also accessibility to the resources. Okay, and the last one talk about the resilience, and a special case we talk about the crisis of COVID-19 and how we handle that from the food systems perspective. Okay, and next I would like to give you some information about the Thai food and agriculture system. We have a quite important sector, I mean food and agriculture. From the number here, from the last statistic that we have in 2019, food and agriculture sector contribute to around 15% of the GDP of the countries. Agriculture itself in the blue color is around 8 to 9%. Okay, so we share the food and agricultural sector share quite a big portion of the economy. Okay, but when we look at into more figures and in comparison to the other countries, say we have around 8.1% from the agricultural sector itself. Okay, not including the food. 8.1% of the GDP come from agriculture, but we use 31% labor force from the total labor force. We use 31% in this sector. That means we use 31% for producing 8% of GDP. But when we see some gap here, right? And when we compare to the other countries, like we share the quite similar ratio to some countries. But if we look at the more developed countries like in Netherlands or in Israel, the ratio of the agricultural GDP and ratio of the labor force on agriculture is almost similar. So they are having more productive way of doing this. Okay. So okay, and there are some research here in 2015 talk about they are grouping the group of the countries. Say Thailand is in the kind of transition economy, saying we share around 31-32% of the agricultural GDP, and we are having around 8-9% of the agricultural GDP, with 31-32% of the labor force in agriculture. So if we want to shift by this framework, we want to shift to the more urbanized and developed economy, we may need to think about shifting this kind of ratio. Okay, this is about the number. If you look at into more information or data about food system of Thailand, as we can expect from the statistic, we are having a quite low value added per workers of the agricultural workers. Okay, comparing to the world average. Okay, we have quite good food distribution in terms of retailers and supermarket. We are having a quite good distribution network for distributing the foods to people. About the yields or productivities, this is just an example, we are having a bit lower productivities or yields, say from the cereal yields, from the vegetable yield. Okay, and we have high share of employment. Okay, as we discussed earlier, and we have the average, infrastructure for agriculture. Okay, comparing to the Southeast Asian and comparing to the world. Okay, we have quite average on this. When we look at the consumption side, okay, we have around 8 to 9% of undernourishment, which is a bit higher than the world average. Okay, and if you look at the consumption of the young generations, we see young generation eat less fruits and vegetable comparing to the world average. Have more carbonated soft drink, and also having more fast food. This is the young generation consumption will be the majority in the future. Okay, this is a situation of the food system in Thailand by some pickup number. Okay, so from the research question that we were assigned from the beginning, that we try to propose the food system framework as a foundation for policy making. So we start with a discussion with stakeholders and some policy makers, and we said there might be 3 ultimate goals for food system for Thailand. Okay, start with we would like to make a reliable food system. This is one of the important foundation. Say reliable mean we have the food security, we have a good food safety, and we have the good food quality, meaning healthy nutrients and also tasty food. Okay, and we also have must have the reliable production and distribution system. Okay, I think we are doing pretty okay with the reliable target. When we talk about the next target, we talk about the innovative and competitive food system. This is about how to have the new strategic and innovative food products, how to prepare to respond to the technology disruptions. We talk about the lab-grown product, like lab-grown meat, how Thai economy, which depend also very much, have a big portion on livestock or something like that, how to respond to the futures. We talk about the high value product, and also we talk about how to increase the technological capability of the producers, which is the long-term goal, which is, I think in this case, we are having many things to do, because even if we do a very good research and technology development, but the real sector, like the producer, cannot catch up or cannot absorb that knowledge or technology, so it's meaningless. And finally, we like to have the sustainable food system where we have the responsible production and consumption. We have a good way of food waste reduction and recycling, and very big issue is about fair benefit allocation within the value chain. About to the players within the value chain. Especially, we share the similar situation with Dr. Belton and Dr. Adi talk about the small segment, small size farmers or intermediate segment that are having some issues that we need to tackle. Okay, this is what the kind of conceptual and ultimate goals that we like, and we also elaborate more into the more actionable framework. We employ the framework from Berkum, from Bergen that try to elaborate the elements in the food system. We identify the key food value chain activities that are important in Thailand, and also we identify the socioeconomic drivers, for example, market driver, policy driver, scientific driver, population and cultures. And we also identify some environmental drivers below here in the green color. And we try to make it clear that what kind of goal that we would like to propose. So we also share the 5 action track directions from the Food System Summit, which is the kind of international kind of working directions. Say the goal number 1 and number 5. This is what we discussed earlier already. But I think in Thailand we need another goal, number 6, the national economy and competitiveness, which is, as I said at the beginning, that food sector for Thai is a kind of economic engine also. So we also bring in one more goal. It's about the economy side and competitiveness of the countries among international market. Okay, so we try to lay out this picture, and we will propose that for discussion about the policy making process, which depend on many ministries and many agencies that I talk about later, should or would be good to discuss on the same framework, on the same data. Each element here should have the data in the same way as that I think you talk about the food system profiling and so on. We are under the process doing this also. And this is the translation of the direction of these 6 goals of the food system. There are some keywords here. I would not go into the details of this one, but this is somehow we translate into the key points for Thai context. Okay, and we review policies where we have many strategies, policy and plan related to food system. We review all of them in terms of contents and in terms of the target and KPI. And we found but a lot of fragmentation on this kind of plan and strategies. We have number 7, the strategic framework for food management by National Food Committee, which is kind of more comprehensive and employ the system approach for this one, for the food system policy. From the review, we compare the goals. Actually, we did a very comprehensive review in details, but in summarized pictures, we think for Thai, we have done a pretty good planning and strategic directions on goal number 1 and number 3 about the food safety, safe and nutritious food for all, and about the nature positive production. Okay, we did a good, very good planning and directing. We have the moderate practice, level of the goal number 2, shift to the sustainable consumption pattern. There are some policy, but not so clear target, especially about the healthy diet consumption. We do some macro policy and targets in the goal number 5, but not so clear actionable ones. Okay, we did a very comprehensive policy and plan on the national economy and competitiveness in goal number 6. However, the weak point would be the technological capability of food producers and traders, that the other side that we need to improve. And we do not so good in planning in goal number 4 says about the advanced equitable livelihood, especially we have very big issues about the fair benefit allocation among the players in the value chain. This is what we many speakers discuss also. Okay, this is the kind of whole pictures. In summaries, this is an ongoing research. Okay, we emphasize that food and agriculture sector for Thailand is very much important and complex and involving many parties and authorities. And the sectors are managed in somehow fragmented structure and many ministries, ranging from Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Industry, Ministry of Public Health, Ministry of Commerce, Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Research, Innovation, and many other agencies. We trying to review and see the sector from the systemic lens, and we also employ the direction that the food system proposed by the FAO as a working framework at the moment. And we propose Thai framework and target, and we are under the review and do profiling of the food system. This is what we like to share information and what we are doing with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Santi, for sharing a presentation on Thailand case on sustainable food systems status, where you are in the process, and sharing also very honest assessment, where Thailand has done well and where improvement still needed. Surely this is the work in progress. Food system is a complex concept and therefore still require time to really work with stakeholders, and you have explained where you are. During Vietnamese case, we were trying to make connection between national level and local level, But I thought in case of Thailand, I would like to bring slightly different perspective and ask if you could shed some light and share your perspective. Because food systems has also issues that of transboundary in nature and cross-border issues. Surely food systems should not be confined by geopolitical boundary, but there might be also interlinkages and the need to work with neighboring countries. Thailand is located in the center of Southeast Asia, particularly mainland. Dr. Santi, could you share some thought about how food systems could be used as a framework for Thailand to be able to work with neighboring countries, addressing the issue of transboundary nature or cross-border issues, so as food systems, it will not be only be applicable at the national and local level, but also can address the issue at the regional level. Dr. Santi, could you shed some light on how this could be applied? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Suryan. I think I totally agree with the points that food system development should not be bound by the geopolitics boundaries. Okay, and I think we today I heard at least from Vietnamese perspective, we share the similar, but even not totally in detail, but we share the similar approach. I think this is a good starting point, and I believe that if starting from our regions like in Southeast Asia, that if we're starting to talk about food system as a keyword to develop this, and how to say, try to bring this kind of framework into the more multilateral forums and so on, would make a starting point to work together. And I believe that we can share the framework and share the actions. For example, we talk about the environmental driver. I think we share the same environment, right? A similar environment. So a lot of issue inside the elements in the food system could be discussed and shared, and could be the issues that bring us to talk together for the international cooperation, like Dr. Suryan said. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Santi. I'm sure that there will be a lot to talk, and surely Mekong Institute would be pleased to be connected with you. I'm sure that from your experience, we can easily identify a few topics where it's of regional importance.
Right.
One is the use of water, that require a more collaborative approach among the countries. The transboundary haze, because of open burning and so on and so forth, that cannot be fixed by just one country. Transboundary pests, animal disease, cross-border trade, all of these issues where food systems could provide a framework for cooperation. Much remains to be further discussed. I'm sure that we will need to find time. Hopefully, I could pay you a visit, Dr. Santi, sometime in the near future to discuss.
Yeah, sure.
So, thank you very much once again. Colleagues and friends, audience, we have now 15 minutes more before the session ends. So in that case, let me suggest the following. Before making a quick reflection or synthesis of the session, I would like to give the presenter 2 minutes. This is just to perhaps touch upon some of the points or issues that you have heard from other speakers, and you find that it's important as a take-home message for the audience. It could be also something that could be an agenda for future actions that we can all take to promote food systems, profiling, policy, and transformation. And afterwards, I try to quickly summarize and wrap up the sessions before turning over back to the organizing committee. So, Dr. Benjamin, if you are ready, you may wish to take your 2 minutes just to share your further thought and some of the key message you want to give to the audience, please. Dr. Benjamin.
Thank you very much. So I think we heard some really nice examples there from Vietnam and from Thailand with regards to sort of ways to go about mapping out and understanding the sort of multi-sectoral nature of food systems and sort of how to integrate research and policy. So I think that provides a sort of really nice example to follow in other places. Yeah, I'll just finish there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Benjamin, for this quick reflection. Next, I would like to invite, Dr. Adi. Would you like to share some take-home message and perhaps some suggestions from what you have heard, and anything you find that is has been missed out and you want to re-emphasize your point? Dr. Adi, please.
Yes, thank you. Like previous presenter, there is so many policies actually that have been put forward to respond to the current events. It's often harm some farmer or actors in agriculture sector. As you know, the lowest level in the farmer usually take the lowest incentive, lowest financial beneficiaries. So that's why I hope this seminar, this conference also propose some policies or evidence that can learn from other countries such as Vietnam and so on. So we can learn from many experience and can apply to our practices in each countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Adi, for re-emphasize the point about how we can take this up also in the future. Dr. Chuen, would you like to share your thought, some take-home message to the audience, please?
Yeah. So thank you. So based on experience we have done, we have recognized that we, under the rapid urbanization, and especially for Southeast Asian countries, leading to different things to be considered in terms of the outcome in nutrition and health, socio-economic and environment, and it's really urgent right now to call for the collaboration, not only at the national but also at the regional, to see how to make more synergies and also to solve the problem in more system way and to be more sustainable. So that will be crucial for all the people to think in the bigger scope of the work or the vision to for sharing, for supporting, and so moving to a more impact in terms of the food system approach to contribute not only in nutrition and health but also think for the future in terms of the impact and the much less impact to the environment. So right now we need to create more the mechanism for exchanging information, connecting all of the actors, not only in research but also policy and also other actors to make it in more implementation ways to transform the food system in the region. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tuen. That is certainly a very interesting comment you have made. And this is also suggesting us that much of it to be also learned by individual countries, and to hope that we can bring this experience for us to continue to share and refine the approach, because there is no one size fit all in defining, profiling food systems and taking the food system into implementation. Dr. Dao, could you share some light or message before we close the session? Dr. Dao, are you with us?
I believe that he in the big meeting with Ministry of Agriculture. So
okay.
But just
right.
we
All
will
right.
from the Vietnam side. We will try together because Dr. Dao and I together and all the people will create a strong team in the food system in the country. Yeah.
Thank you. Last but not the least, Dr. Santi, are there any points or issues that you would like to leave to the audience sharing from Thailand experience? Over to you, please.
Thank you. Today, I think I'm very happy to hear many speakers talking about the food systems approach, and I think we should find a ways to think systematically, like what we discussed today, for many countries. And I also continue from the point Dr. Suryan raised earlier about cooperations among countries. We may start with the Southeast Asian countries to talk about the food system framework for the regions. This is what might be an interesting and also meaningful points to start after today. I guess I'm happy to cooperate with our partnering countries in Southeast Asia also. Okay, so and also thank you, Dr. Suryan, for very nice moderating for this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Santi, for re-emphasizing that the usefulness and benefit of food system could also be expanded for regional cooperation, and because some of the issues cannot be solely addressed by single country like the topic we have discussed. All right, I think before summarizing, we still have a bit of time, just hearing a little bit more of a different experience and so on and so forth. Can I just quickly perhaps hear feedback from the audience? I'm sure that we have heard Thailand, we have heard about Vietnam in terms of how they apply food system profiling. And that was a good example. Any audience or any other attendants could share something to do with other country experience that they have conducted or they are conducting food system profile. Is there anyone who could share information in the chat box or can really provide information? So we would like to see how this has been ongoing also in other countries. All right. All right. Okay. I think, yes, I saw Dr. Tuen. If you could share the information that I just asked. Dr. Tuen.
Yes, so under the Alliance of Biodiversity International Research, we also have employees at the national level in other countries, and we share with the organizer the information updated information because it's still ongoing process. One more thing I would like to touch this upon this because that will be benefit for all the participants to get to know that. You can go to the website of the UN Food System Summit. In that one, after the Food System Summit, they have developing the coalitions. In that, they will bring some specific approach in different ways to address the food system challenges. So, touching to the Food System Summit coalitions such as the like the 100 million farmers or the food innovation hub, that can be very useful for the context of the countries in Southeast Asia. So we have to leverage on this event to think further and have its leverage in the collaboration for us to check how the effort in the country can map the different physical coalition at the local scale. For the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen, for sharing that information and also provide information in the chat box. I would like to invite audience to have a look at it. Also, good input from Dr. Jody Harris from World Vegetable Center on the experience of food system profiling in the Philippines and in the Pacific. I think much to be explored. I think we certainly would need future opportunity to bring in this experience, not to look into the profile alone, but the process of planning, conducting, facilitating this food system profiling, because this will be the basis where knowledge could be developed so that it can serve the basis for decision making and actions. Colleagues and friends, we are running already almost at the end of the session. I would like to do some quick recap. I won't be able to summarize all the key points, but I would like to touch upon 5 quick points. First, I think since yesterday, we all agree that food system now provide a new, not completely new, but provide a good holistic lens, so that we started to understand the interlinkages of various sectors that relate to agriculture, relate to food, and various, let's say, agencies. So this way, food systems give a framework of understanding on this interdependency and therefore working together. So I hope that this could be something that we continue to promote. That's number one. Second, we have heard from the presenter that as a basis to really understand the food system profiling could be a useful tool that we can map information, put together knowledge, and engage multi-stakeholder, multi-agency, so as to try to understand how food system is defined and how stakeholders could work together in terms of implementing the food system in broader context. Number 3, I think we have learned from Thailand and at the same time also in Vietnam that mapping, putting in place food systems at the national level may not be done in isolation or from scratch. You can build on top of the work that has been done in the countries, use the systems and also multi-sectoral approach to really understand the importance of food system better. But at the national level, it's not sufficient. You also need to look into how the national level food systems will be translated into implementation at the subnational local level. And at the same time, also consider how you can identify issues, topic to work with neighboring countries to address regional transboundary in nature. And last but not the least, there's still much to be learned about the experience, and I hope that we will be able to have future opportunities to bring in various experience and lessons we can learn so as to really take the food system forward and also to see the implementation at the scale. So with that, colleagues and friends, I really have to conclude the session 3. Thanks for your kind participation and inputs. I would like to turn over the floor to the organizing team. Thank you.